The Battle of Anzio, also called Operation Shingle, took place on January 22, 1944 and lasted until May. It was one of the most hard-fought and hard-won operations of World War II. The Battle of Anzio was set in motion when the Italian campaign hit a stalemate in 1943. The Germans had stopped the Allied advance cold at Cassino, Italy. The Allied ground commander-in-chief, General Sir Harold Alexander, concluded that there was no way he could take Rome unless the Allies initiated an amphibious end run and weakened the Cassino front by drawing off German troops manning the Gustav Line. The Gustav Line ran across Italy from just north of the Tyrrhenian Sea in the west, through the Apennine Mountains to the Adriatic coast in the east. The center of the line was anchored around the mountains behind the town of Cassino. It included Monte Cassino and Monte Cairo, which gave the defenders clear observation of potential attackers advancing towards the mouth of the Liri Valley. The Gustav Line was fortified with gun pits, concrete bunkers, turret and machine gun emplacements, barbed wire, and minefields. It was the strongest of the German defensive lines south of Rome. The troops commanded by General Alexander advanced north along the mountain range forming the spine of Italy. General Clark took his troops to the west from the main base of Naples up the Italian boot, and General Montgomery took the rest up the Adriatic coast. In the early morning hours of the 22nd of January, General Clark's army landed on the Italian coast below Rome and established a beachhead far behind the enemy lines. Coming ashore, Allied forces initially met little resistance and began moving inland. By midnight, 36,000 men had landed on the beachhead. Rather than move quickly to strike at the German rear, they began strengthening the perimeter. Informed of the Allied landings, the German commander, General Kesselring, took immediate action by dispatching mobile reaction units to the area. The next day, General Eberhard von Mackensen was given command of the German defenses. Across the lines, the Allies were reinforced by 2 more divisions, and on January 30th they launched a 2-prong attack, with the British attacking up the Via Anzio towards Campolium, while the U.S. 3rd Infantry and Rangers assaulted Cisterna. In the fighting that resulted, the attack on Cisterna was driven back, with the Rangers taking heavy losses, while the British gained ground up the Via Anzio, but failed to take the town. As a result, an exposed salient was created in the lines. By early February, the Germans' force totaled over 100,000 men, facing the Allies' 76,000. On February 3rd, the Germans attacked the Allied lines with a focus on the Via Anzio salient. In several days of heavy fighting, they succeeded in pushing the British back. On February 16th, the attack was renewed, and Allied forces on the Via Anzio front were pushed back to their prepared defenses at the final beachhead line before the Germans were halted. Here is a story from one of the men who battled at Anzio.
They needed replacements for what we call the weapons platoon, and they put me in a mortar squad as an ammunition bearer. And that's where I got my first taste of what it was like to be over there. I lasted 4 days, and then I got hit in the stomach, and it kept me about 100 days in the hospital. Well, they carried me back. I stayed back in sent me back to a little medic place they had back there and put me on a hospital ship and carried me back to Naples. And when I went back within 250 yards of where I was at. See, we got tied up on Anzio there for a long time.
During Anzio, the Germans had a new kind of gun called K5 guns. These quickly became famous because they could be moved rapidly over long distances and could launch 500-pound shells more than 30 miles. They spanned more than 100 feet long and weighed 218 tons. There were 2 used in the Battle of Anzio, and the Allies nicknamed them Anzio Annie and Anzio Express. The well-known artillery writer Ian Hogg described the K5 as probably the most successful railway gun ever built. Anzio Annie also helped greatly on the attack of the Anzio beachhead. Spurred by the elimination of the Campolian salient, the Germans continued their counterattack on the 16th of February by moving down the Anzio-Albano road. The initial attacks were beaten back with heavy losses, allowing only minor penetrations. Just before midnight, however, enemy persistence paid off. A gap was created between the 179th and 157th Infantry, and 3 German regiments quickly advanced, supported by 60 tanks. By dawn, the Germans had driven a 2-by-1-mile wedge in the center of the 45th Division and were poised to break the Allied line, threatening the entire beachhead. Through the 16th and 17th of February, the Allies scrambled to plug the gap with hastily redeployed anti-aircraft guns, naval gunfire, and armored division units. The Tactical Air Command later claimed that the total weight of bombs dropped and the number of bombers employed was the greatest ever allowed up to that date in direct support of ground forces. The Germans launched a more intense assault at dawn on the 18th of February and destroyed 1 battalion before pushing the remainder of the unit back half a mile farther to the defensive line. The regiment held, later counting 500 dead Germans in front of its positions. Elsewhere, other regiments also held their positions in spite of heavy losses during the German attacks. By midday, Allied air and artillery superiority had turned the tide. When the Germans launched a final afternoon assault, it was halted by airstrikes and massed mortar, machine gun, artillery, and tank fire. The enemy attacks that followed on 19th and 20th of February were weaker and were broken up before ground contact was made. The crisis has passed, and while attacks continued until the 22nd of February, the VI Corps went over the offensive and succeeded in retaking some lost ground. On the night of the 11th through 12th of May, the 5th and 8th Armies launched their long-awaited spring offensive against the Gustav Line. The Germans abandoned Monte Cassino after a week of heavy fighting by Polish forces, and the French and U.S. Corps succeeded in breaking the Gustav Line by the 15th of May. The 2nd Corps continued its drive north towards Terracina, which fell on the 23rd and 24th of May. German resistance was rapidly crumbling and troops began withdrawing northeast towards Rome. On the 23rd of May, a 45-minute Allied artillery barrage opened on the Cisterna front, followed by armor and infantry attacks along the line. By evening, the Allies had breached the enemy main line of resistance. The following day, the VI Corps forces encircled Cisterna, and it finally fell on the 25th. The Allies fought long and hard, and eventually reached their goal. Rome was liberated on 4th of June, 1944. The Battle of Anzio had some of the largest casualties of World War II. The Allies suffered over 29,200 combat casualties. There were an additional 37,000 non-combat casualties. German combat losses were estimated at 27,500. We will forever remember the many brave men who fought hard and died at the Battle of Anzio.